Welcome back, my friends, to the Jameson Brandon channel, where we talk about all things money. Today, I want to talk about a slightly different macro topic, which is to really have an open discussion about the quality of life and standard of life, which are considered two different things from a definition standpoint in the United States. Because, there's a lot of complaining lately about the US is getting so bad and I want to go somewhere else. And I actually just shot a video for Crypto Junkies outlining one specific person that moved all the way to Puerto Rico just for the tax benefits. Thought they kind of made it with crypto, went down there for a few months, moved their whole fucking family without trying it out, and it turned out to be a disaster because all these realities that if you've traveled outside the US you're aware of, he did not know of. So flickering lights and power shortages and power outages and having to go through 3, 4, 5, 10 different providers for internet services, internet randomly going down during the middle of the day, food quality issues, car quality issues, traffic issues, down to the most basic shit that most people don't even think about is all things you really should, first off, be thankful that you have in the United States because it's not that good in a lot of other places. And secondly, these are things, and I've kind of created a little list, maybe we'll add to it, of things you should be looking at if you want to go somewhere else. So if we look at standard of living and its definition, it's the material well-being of the average person in a given population, typically measured by a few different things, income, GDP, and something else. I don't know, it doesn't matter. And then there's quality of life, which is how long people tend to live there per 1,000 people or something. I actually think there's formulas that are used to come up with quality of life standards, and then there's standard of living. So let's just kind of blend the two and talk about this, right? First off, let's look at why people are really getting upset. This has been done throughout history, throughout time, for a really long time, but it is the idea of divide and conquer. And this couldn't be more true of right now in the United States. Democrat versus Republican, North Korea versus South Korea, North Japan versus South Japan, North China versus South China. Within all of these countries and political belief systems, worldviews, religions, you are constantly having us versus them scenarios. In fact, you don't get a large movement of anything without having a bad guy to constantly point at. So in the United States, it's, people in the North point at people in the South, and, things, I'm just reminded of things even that I've heard for the longest time, you're in Tennessee because everyone's fucking their cousin. Or just shit like that, right? Inner issues with people of the same colored skin, the same fucking race. And then obviously we can bait races up against each other. We can bait genders up against each other. Now that there's going to be apparently 78 genders, we've got a whole lot more division that we can do because we can pin all these genders against each other. And everyone can just outcry, I'm the biggest victim. No, I've got the worst quality of life. No, you don't understand what it's like to be me. And none of you motherfuckers know what it's like to live in the middle of fucking Africa. And none of you know what it's like to live in fucking China because you've never been there. And the quality of life and the standards of living are fucking dog shit in a lot of those places. So you need to calm down with how bad you think you've got it, first off. And you need to take a realistic inventory of stock. Your quality of life as a poor person in the United States is better than your quality of life as a rich person in many other countries. So shut up. You don't have it that bad. And people just don't really get that, and they can't see that until they understand or have been somewhere else where they're like, wow, dude, yes. Okay, for example, in China, they still eat dogs. Now, I know that this is a no-no to say. They really buck up against this, and, these are things I'm not supposed to be talking about because, algorithms and whatnot, I could, get into trouble for saying things like this, especially if I was in that country right now. If I was in China saying these things right now, I'd be in huge trouble, and I might even face an exit ban, which is where you can't leave. First, it was, we don't do it at all. And then there's all this definitive proof that came out, and then it's oh no, it's the North that does it. No, it's the South that does it. You see? It's the same game. North, South Korea, North, South of any country, country versus country, Asia versus the US, US versus Europe, Germany versus other countries, this religion versus that religion. It's all the same shit, guys. And so it's all used on purpose to divide and conquer. I think that's enough about that. There's all kinds of other little aspects of that, right? All the people flowing out of California to go into Texas, well, they're going to face their own issues. Like I said, Democrat, Republican issues, right. Okay. So those, you got to get into check. Why am I actually feeling like I want to leave the United States right now? Is it because of some reason that somebody else put into my head, or is this a real reason? And if you do want to leave the US and go try out somewhere else, go try it out. Listen to my words. Try it out first, yeah? even though it's harder with testing and the COOF, and you got to get the poke for some countries, there is at least a dozen countries where you don't. And a lot of countries are starting to open up now. Who knows about mandatory poke passes? I don't know. But that's something that you would want to look into. And if it's worth like picking up your entire family and moving, like you should be looking into this shit. Because I can't tell you how many people in the crypto space, for example, are all like, oh, Puerto Rico, 4% flat tax. And then they get there and they're like, wow, this is not what I was expecting. Well, yeah, no shit, dude. These are things that you want to be looking at if you're going to go somewhere else, or if you are going to travel somewhere else and you're there right now. These are things that you need to kind of like take stock of. It's like, okay, first off, these are in no order either. Jobs. What is it like for you to work in that country? Can you get work? Are you working on the internet? So then all you need is a quality internet connection. Suss that out. How many different internet companies are there? What is the quality? Like, I'll give you an example. In Asia, it's not uncommon to pay for 150 megabits up and down and get 50, get 60. Some days it's 30. So it's like, let's say we slap a VPN on top of that. How slow is your internet really going? And those are questions you need to ask yourself. So jobs and figure that out. And I'd wrap all this under logistics, but I put logistics and transportation together because that's another thing to look at, is how does the country move? Are you sitting in 3 hours of traffic every single day? People complain about traffic in LA and things like that, which can get bad at certain hours of the day, but just imagine it taking you 3-4 hours to go 10 miles down the road. Well, that is a reality in some Asian countries. Okay, and I don't want to keep naming names to beat up on certain countries, but there are certain countries where you to go typically would take an hour drive, right? Let's say a 30 to 45 mile trip, taking 1 hour could take you up to 7 hours. Depending on the day, depending on what sort of holiday might be going on. Okay, there's places that have restrictions on what kind of cars you can drive in a city. You can't drive bikes. You can drive cars on these certain days. How much does it cost to get a car? How much does it cost for licensing the car? There's some countries where you have to pay everywhere you go. You got to pay to park at your apartment or your condo or your house. Well, they don't have houses in some of these countries, so it's just mostly apartments and condos. So sometimes you got to pay to park everywhere. You leave to go get food in your car, and you come back, and you got to pay again. And you leave, and you come back, and you got to pay again, and you got to pay again, and you got to pay again. Or if you want to buy a car spot, they're $40,000-$50,000 a year, when the car costs $10,000 for some Suzuki dog shit. So these are all things that people just don't think about for whatever reason. Can you ride bikes? If so, is there any restrictions on it? Some countries have restrictions on what days you can go to the beach, if you can even go to the beach at all. Can you fish? Can you hunt? To what degree are you able to fish and hunt? I mean, there are countries that are locked down like this. These are all things that people take for granted and don't even think about because they're too busy focused on thinking that they're a big victim when they're not. Next, big topic that I don't have on here is corruption. I hate to tell you, but all of South America, all of Asia pretty much works on a very in-your-face, very blatant corruption model. People can pull out big money and get other people against you if they don't like you. They can report against you. They can do things against you if they don't like you. So then it's like, okay, are we going to be living here free, or are we going to be walking on eggshells? Do I not, talk and meet with any of the neighbors or understand the neighbors for fear of fallout? What are the risks here? What is the RR, the risk to reward in that sort of situation? And then if you do find yourself in the midst of corruption, how does that play out? Right? What are the worst case scenarios and what have you heard happening, right? These are all things you need to be sussing out. Living standards, I'd wrap all this under living standards, but it's like the quality of house. Again, in some Asian countries, the quality of condo and apartment you're getting is absolute shit. They're falling apart every 5-6 years, so they just knock down the whole city and build another one. Pretty sure that gives it away who I'm talking about, but you got to check these things out. Whereas in other places, 20, 30 years and the house still looks brand new. So what are the building standards like? What are the quality of living standards like? Jobs, building. How hard is it to build? Do you have to hire specific people, like from that specific community or regency or area? Or can you hire anyone? Can you bring somebody outside of that country or nationality to design the structure that you want to build or to actually build it? In some countries, this is not allowed. You have to hire local. You have to do things a certain way, right? Food sourcing. What is the quality of food? What is the pollution like in this country? I get that everyone reports to, these statistic websites and they all release these pollution standards and carbon emission thing. It's bullshit. Okay, it's bullshit. And I'll tell you why. Because if it was truthful, there would be 3 countries that are very low on that list. That would be 1, 2, and 3, and it's not the US. Okay, the US is actually extremely low in comparison to other countries based on its size and its actual output of carbon. But yet, if you turn on some news networks right now, what are they all crying about? The world is coming to an end and we're going to die in 12 years because of fucking carbon footprint. So that's just an excuse to get you to eat fucking ants and beetles and all kinds of other dog shit. So yeah, what is the quality of food like? In some countries, you cannot get vegetables, or vegetables are 10 times the price. You cannot get fruit. And these are just all basic things that you would never think about if you've got, that kind of US mindset going on, right? Banking, what's banking like? Can you get banking? What's it going to work with like wire transfers? Am I just doing international wire transfers to somebody else? How much can I pull out on my cards at the ATMs? How readily available are ATMs? All of these are, again, basic shit, right? I think it's basic stuff, but for a lot of people, this is like, wow, I never thought of that, Clothing, luxury, if you do have a higher quality of life, if you or want that, or you do make good money, or you make decent money, and now you're all of a sudden find yourself in a top 1% of the country you want to go to, well, what's that experience like? Is it great, or is it capped out? Because I'll tell you what, in some countries, you could spend 10, 15, $20 million on housing, on quality of life stuff, and it doesn't actually matter because you're kind of going back to the same neighborhoods as everyone who's poor because everything's blended together. So it doesn't actually matter, and it just puts you at higher risk. And you got to deal with the same issues: potholes on the road, door dings, parking lots. Like, you're not getting private anything to park your vehicles like you would in the United States. You got a house, you park in your garage. You don't got to pay to go into your garage every time. You could hide the car for a couple weeks or a couple months if you wanted to. You only take it out on special occasions. In some countries, rules like that and a quality of life like that doesn't exist. And these are all things you got to think about. Down to roads, bridges. What is that like? Some countries, they never fix the roads. Some countries, with how they route traffic, you have to go down roads that are very, very bad. And if you're driving a bike, then it makes it worse, right? So then it turns a typical commute time double, triple, quadruple. You have to deal with issues with the bike breaking down. You might crash. You might, severely hurt yourself. Can you get insurance in these countries? Some sort of international health insurance. What does that look like, right? It's like, I don't know, especially around the crypto space, it's just so crazy to me how impulsive people are. And they're just like, going to Puerto Rico. It's like, slow down, calm down. You have no fucking idea what it's like to live there. So how about you go live there for a week, a month, without the missus, without the family, and go see what that's like first, and then do it. So anyways, I just wanted to give you this as sort of a primer. We're going to be talking more about this. I've got a couple other videos queued up. I got a live stream coming up that I want to talk about, should you leave the US and sovereignty stuff. I would love to, just have these where I get into super specifics based on my experience in certain countries, but I still travel to those countries, and some of this stuff is kind of nasty and bad, and I don't want to put that associated with my name because then I won't be able to go back, or if I do go back, I might get into trouble. I might start having new people knocking on my door. So you have to be really careful about OPSEC, Operation Security. There are tons of risks that I just don't think a lot of people are thinking about. But anyways, if you like this video, toss a like on it. Comment below if you got something to say or just want to help the algorithms on this channel, which is quite dead at this point. If you're brand new here and you like this sort of thing, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification. We'll see you again real soon in another video.